Is that how it usually stops? Is that how the music usually stops?
I don't think so.
It seemed so abrupt. Patty.
Um, Hold up. I have an echo somewhere, but hello.
Hello. Yeah, the music, I don't know what happened.
That yeah, someone it stopped short. That's not our music.
Oh.
It's okay. Hello everyone. You may notice that someone is missing today. Who's missing? Like I actually wait, like I feel like something's different. No? Y'all don't feel like something's different?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, how was everybody doing this week? What was your week like, Kay?
My week was pretty good. We just got off of spring break, and the kids are surprisingly calm. So the week is going really well so far. Weather is really nice up here. So yeah, the week is going really well.
Hmm. Interesting. Um, I also noticed that Annalicia's on mute. I'm gonna need to know how Annalicia's week was as well.
And Alicia's week so far has been very good. The weather's immaculate. Um, it's so far so good. I'm happy to see everyone's here. I'm happy to see, well, I mean, with the exception of Themis, but I'm happy to see that the viewers are here. We've missed you guys. We really hope to engage with you guys this week. Well, today, especially. But yeah, I'm excited for a particular segment. So, how was your week, Petty?
My week? Oh wow, I thought y'all would never ask. You may notice my background is different from the background last week. That was different from the background before that. My sugar mama has really gone above and beyond this week. Instead of putting me in Motel 6, she has put me in the Hilton. I lied. This is Motel 7, but it is still a step up in price. We have gone from 60 a night to 75.99 a night. So I feel like we're improving as far as quality in the room. It kind of feels the same, not gonna lie, but semantics matter. Excuse me, not semantics, but the theatrics matter, and the theatrics here is 75.99. So yes, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Everybody, make sure to like on your way in, and I would like to start us out with a surprise topic. Okay,
I'm scared.
I have
I love it.
I have started philosophy 1101. I am now a college student. I lied. I'm doing it online. It's free, but a question that was posed: do memories still exist even when they
Sorry.
do memories still exist even when they've been forgotten?
What? I'm sorry. That this is the secret topic of the week.
No,
Yes.
this
Oh
is
no. This is so we have two. I wanted to start off with the light one because the second one is really really heavy.
Okay, so this is a softball,
Yeah.
and this is a question: do memories still exist if?
Do memories still exist if they've been forgotten?
Yeah, they do.
so I don't know if this is one of those trick questions where it's like, is the information somewhere to that can be retrieved, or is it like technically a memory if you don't remember it? Like, does it have to be remembered in order to be a memory? I don't know if you're trying to trick us, because I know you do like to trick us. Um, but I would say that there can be things that have happened that you do not retrieve from your memory right away. So I guess technically you forgot them. but you can remember at a later time. So when you say exist, I guess this is where the philosophical part comes in. Like, where are they, right? Like, if you're not conscious of them, where are they? Like, where is this memory? So yeah, I mean, I remember we actually talked about that in one of my undergrad classes. It was called Cognition and Memory. And that was definitely a topic of discussion. And there are several theories about what happens to things that you forget and why you forget. So,
So if I die,
I would have to agree with Kay. But oh my God, really? If you die now, the hypothetical is it's
so if I
it's
die,
changing.
if I die and I'm the only one who remembers my memories, do they still exist?
like your
Really?
particular memories from your point of view.
What does that mean? What do you mean?
So, like, you know, if
I was supposed to be asking the philosophical question.
I don't think this is. I think this is philosophical. I don't think this is philosophical. I'm sorry.
It is though. Like, I get where it's going, Petty.
Okay, so you brought up an interesting point because I asked my friend this question, and she said my version of my memories no longer exist. But like, if I went to the store with my mom and she's still alive, her version of that memory still exists.
That's what I was just gonna say. Like, if we're sitting here together right now, and then you are no longer, I don't want to say, but like, I would still remember this. So it's still a memory, and it could be the same memory that you have currently, but it's not from your own point of view, and our perception is different. So I agree with your friend.
We have our first super chat from
Themis.
Themis and Thoth. He sent $4.99 and he said, heart eyes, smiley face. Welcome to our show. Welcome to what we're doing on our channel. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Annalicia, do you have anything to add before I move on to something I feel like is really heavy?
I missed what you guys were talking about. Just based on the psychology classes that I've taken, the brain is very adept at retaining the most important information the brain retains, and it's whether we remember it is sort of predicated on triggers in the environment, or if it's like a matter of like survival or something like that. But I missed the philosophical element of the hypothetical. I'm kind of just focused on the psychological element of it. So I'm just going to answer the question with yes, because you and Kay kind of cut out when you guys were going back and forth. But my answer is yes. Your brain remembers. I don't know. Let's move on to the heavier.
Okay, y'all weren't feeling the question. It's fine.
I liked it.
In 2021, a worldwide study conducted by UN Women found that 97% of women, these women were aged 18 to 24, had experienced sexual harassment in public spaces. Based on this data, as well as my own personal conversations with women I know, I wanted to pose a question to the panel and to the audience. The question was, why do so many women know a rapist or any man who commits a sexual crime like that, but so few men do?
Annalise, do you want to go first or want me to go first?
So the question is, why do so many women, because women have to know? I think part of the reason that women have to be more aware and more cognizant of their environment, their social and romantic circles, their work environment and communities. I think that whatever you need to, I guess, yeah, that would be my answer. I think it's a necessity.
I've asked this question on social media before because, if you ask a group of women, have they ever experienced anything like that? Most of them are going to say yes in some at some point or another in life. Um, and the answers that I got from men were basically that, like, some people were saying that they don't hang around people that do certain things, which everyone thinks that, right? Like, a lot of people think, oh, my friends would never. Meanwhile, their friends are. So that's like one thing why some people don't know anyone or whatever. And then also, I think that a lot of people don't discuss these things honestly with each other. Like, a lot of even friends amongst each other don't just go like confessing to these creepy and disgusting things that they may do. So a friend might not be aware. And then another reason, I think, is because unfortunately, a lot of people don't even consider certain things to be harassment or SA, which is very unfortunate. But like, a lot of things actually are, like, someone being under the influence and, unable to give consent, or something like that. Like, some people don't even see that as anything. They're like, oh, well, we were just having fun. Um, so like, some people just look at things differently, so they don't put their friends in those categories, even though, technically and legally and, all that, they would be. So I think there are a few things at play for why some men don't know their friends are doing certain things, or anyone in their circle, I guess I should say.
Sorry, Petty. I just not to push back, but I do have to say that I think men, like, I think men as a class I think it's, and this is for all people, but I think that men, because not that, they're like, they are a monolith, but I think that the idea that men are capable of heinous acts and crimes. I think men see themselves in other men, and I think that's difficult to grapple with. I think it's difficult for them um, to accept that. So I think that mostly what happens is that the behavior, the degeneracy or the deviance is it's either justified, it's in some way reasoned with. I think that men have, and this is people kind of have that propensity to do that, especially if they feel like it could be an indirect or peripheral attack to them, as men, as like a class of people. So I think that men are probably, I think that's also happening with men. I think that men know that that behavior is like you're shaking it rough. You're teetering at the edge, but because they're men and because they don't, it's uncomfortable to see themselves that way. I think that they make, yeah, they apologize. They call please. I think that they're public defenders.
So I think I'm more in agreement with Kay regarding, it sounded like what you're saying is that there is an ignorance of what they're doing, even while they're doing it. Regarding a study that I think FEMA spoke about before, denying R but endorsing forceful intercourse. Um, that study mentions how when you ask men, oh, have you ever been forceful with a woman? Have you ever, when someone say no, keep going, etc., stuff that would fall under the definition of graping somebody, men would say yes, but when you use the word grape, they would say no. Um, so do you think it could legitimately be people who, up until you call it R-ing someone, will think that their friend is simply being forceful in the way that the study describes, at least?
You tell us, like, amongst men, do y'all talk about that specifically, like, in your experience?
I don't have male friends. I hate men, all of them. Can't stand them.
But that's that I'm having a hard time. Not that, not I understand, and I would actually agree with that. That men's perception or their idea of what objectively constitutes a sexual violation, or just like a violation in general, their perception or their idea of it may be different than the objective definition. I understand that. I think that men, when it comes to like their children, their sisters, their their daughters, their aunts, I think that the definition becomes much more. I think it clears up a little bit, and I think that they have a much more acute understanding of it, and their capacity to identify deviant and violent behavior. And I've seen it myself in some instances where they might kind of superimpose, like, oh, maybe this is what happened, or this is what he was trying to do to you, or he was trying to put you in this kind of a situation, and they become hyper vigilant because it's like, hey, like, we're men and we know that this kind of thing would happen. So I think that there's a lot of things at play, and I understand, study is a study, but I don't know if that would be the foremost or like the most prevalent issue at play. Is just like defining terms, identifying terms based on definitions, and I don't know. I think they know. I think they
I
know,
think
and I think that people we
I
choose.
think that's so are you saying they know that it's wrong and they do it anyway? They don't care when their friends do it, they don't care when their family does it? Or are you saying, like, what are you saying?
I'm saying I'm saying, well, I think so. We'd have to contextualize it. I think that it would depend. It's situational, right? Like if it's your best friend, if it's your, I think it just depends on who it is. And I think that because men see themselves in other men, I think that there is psychologically a psychological imperative to justify behavior, um, so that it's kind of easier for men to operate as men in the world, right? Like so that they can continue to do the things that they want to do, with impunity. So I think it depends. I think that some guys have friends that they know, and they'll say, yeah, that guy, we call him Swervy Pervy, or like Chester the I'm not going to say that, Chester the M, Esther, like stuff like that. They kind of know, but they're not, they laugh it off, they turn it into a joke, they turn it they just, that oh, something happened to like, I think it depends. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm saying.
Annalicia, do you think that, because I definitely hear what you're saying, do you think that some of this is, I don't know, looked over or, like you said, laughed off or not taken as seriously because of the whole like boys will be boys, men will be men type of trope that there is that can be very harmful? Where,
Yeah.
certain things are just seen as, oh, that's just what people do, instead of seeing, as a serious matter. Do you think that
Yeah,
adds to that?
that I think that most definitely compounds the issue. But we know in the black community is like 10 decades, like decades behind with respect to the acknowledgement, the understand, like just the comprehension with respect to SA, mental health, mental illness, psych, like medication. Diff- the black community is behind. So when it comes to this
Wait,
kind of issue,
because the chat is saying they get it and I'm not understanding it. Let's take a hiatus while I go through the super chats because I need this to marinate because you completely lost me, but you didn't lose the chat. So I feel like it's me. Ill Doctrine says your memory isn't a single thing. There is structure and content. It's kind of like when the highway still exists without traffic. The traffic is the content that uses the structure or pathway when the memory comes to mind. Okay, well, this did not help me become any less confused at all. Can
that
can
is beautiful. That is such a succinct. That is a succinct, and that is such a beautiful analogy. That's perfect. Ill doctrine.
so
Thank you for that. That's perfect.
everybody understand but me? Okay, I'll come back to it. Women experience it,
I
men
understand that
often.
because I've heard something like that in a psychology class in my undergrad. So yeah.
This wasn't in my online course. I have no clue. Hurry Up and Eat says women experience it Men often excuse it regarding SA. The doctor curtains are giving petty. Yes, yes. The Dominican Republic. Mm. Themis out here wearing hoochie daddy shorts. Oops, that wasn't a super chat. Who put that on? I have no idea. Curry Up and Eat said, men find it difficult to regulate other men's behavior while dominating women is normalized. Yeah, I don't think I disagree. Themis is on Spirit, he says, in Beyonce's voice. I don't have Beyonce's well, no, I don't have Beyonce's voice, so I can't, but it's fine. Okay, so I see a couple different perspectives here. Y'all are saying that men know and don't care. Y'all are saying that men don't know and they're ignorant about what they're doing. Y'all are saying they might be ignorant about, well, Annalise, you said they might be ignorant about the literal term, but they still know that what they're doing is bad. Someone in the comments said, let me see, men know it's wrong. They know it's wrong if it happens to their daughter. I think I agree with that too. Like, does it have to do with, I mean, weren't we talking about one week, like a few weeks ago, the 13-year-old boy with the grown woman, and how many men were in the comments, like suddenly with sympathy and understanding about SA and rape and stuff that tends to be lacking when it comes to women victims. Does it have to do with it being someone who looks like you?
Right, but so that's the point, right? That's kind of the, now we've come full circle. Even when you look at Brittany Renner, and even that situation, I believe they were both consenting adults, but men still felt inclined to identify that behavior as deviant or, that he was being taken advantage, like grossly taken advantage of. And that's kind of the point, right? It's like men identify maladaptive or violent or aberrant behavior when they want to. And even if we look at, if it's like an issue with understanding or translating vernacular, or the English lexicon, that's, even if we look at that, they still know what's right and what's wrong, and they still can apply that. When it's just, again, I really think that they pick and choose. I think there might be a population, a part of the population that truly doesn't understand, and the only thing that they would need is just education, understanding, awareness, and then that they can kind of, okay, I'm online, I overstand. But I think the rest are they're operating with their own sense of moral compass and moral relativism. So they get to choose when something is morally corrupt or bankrupt, and when something is just boys being boys. And again, the Black community is so far behind when it comes to the rejecting and understanding the ramifications of violence, when it comes to disciplining your kids, domestic violence, abuse. The Black community is like 10 decades behind. So
Wait, y'all don't spank y'all children?
never.
Okay,
And I was my brothers and we got the belt, we got hangers, we got cords, like you pulled the cord out the TV. We got it. But I would never. And I have never, not even a pinch.
That's good. Y'all know how I feel about kids over here. Kay, are you a child abuser as far as spanking? You're on mute.
Absolutely not. I do not think that people should hit children. There's so much research about it. Like, yeah, no, I don't think children should be hit.
Excellent. We are all on one accord. With that being said, I would like to move forward to respectability politics in TikTok. And I also want to make a note. We are having an idgab. We are having an idgab section at the end of this stream. If there's anybody in the audience who needs advice, we are all qualified to give you probably really bad advice. So if y'all want to come up at the end of the stream, there will be time. Um, we're gonna give dating advice. We're gonna give relationship advice. We're gonna give familiar advice. I promise you, I'm gonna tell you to leave. So you probably shouldn't ask me. You should probably ask Kay or Annalicia.
But
Um,
to be fair, and I don't give advice, but if I did,
that is,
I would encourage you guys to call, like, it could be the most trivial question or the most trivial issue that you're experiencing, or it could be something a little more complex or esoteric or whatever it is. We're going to give you the advice unsolicited and definitely unqualified, but always from a place of love, understanding, and empathy. But when the tough love is needed, not that you're not going to get beat. Those days are over. But when the tough love is needed, you will also get that, because we love you guys, and we want everybody to be good. And sometimes I need advice. So you know what? If you come up here, I might end up asking you. I'm in a pickle myself. So please come up.
I don't know about that, but if your man isn't paying you at least 40,000 a year, I see no reason to be with him. Why? It's a useless relationship. So just know that before y'all come up. But the super chat from Giggles says, "Thank you, Giggles, for the $10. Men have some sort of camaraderie among each other, so they don't speak up when it comes to the immoral behavior of other men." Yes, it is a boys' club. What's that show called? Not the show. It's a TV, not a TV. It's a movie, and it's all the women in this town, and they find out that they've been drugged. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Nope. Okay,
Are you
some
talking about
really old timey Amish looking.
um where oh my goodness, everybody in the chat probably knows exactly what you're talking about. What is the name of that show?
Uh,
Hold on, say it again.
Oh, I have to remember it now.
it's like a village of women, and all of the men go out of town for a day. And this happens, and while they're out of town, all of the women are deciding what to do about. They find out that they've been. Is it called Good Luck, Darling?
I've never seen that. I've never heard of that in my life.
Oh no, that's not what I was thinking. What is the
Oh,
name of
Women Talking. It's called Women Talking. Yes, the boys' club is a boys' club, and the boys gonna stick together. That's why I brought that up. But yeah. Regarding respectability politics, do we all know what respectability politics are?
For sure.
Yeah, but I think you should clarify what is being talked about right now, just in case, so that everyone is on the same page from the beginning.
Okay, well, I know what it is. I was just wanting to make sure y'all knew what it was. So, Kay, why don't you explain instead?
We're thinking that your behavior has to be a certain way in order to be afforded a certain level of treatment or respect from people.
Okay, I'm going to give my definition as well. My simplified PP definition. Thema said, "How do I fly a plane? It's almost my turn on spirit." Well, I'm going to echo to you what I saw a pastor online say. Actually, let me pull up the video. While I pull up the video, I'm going to give my simplified definition of respectability politics, or what I think it means to me.
Okay, why did
Um,
you call on me? If
hmm?
why did you told me just to say it just off the top, and now you're out here like Googling things. I
Wait,
thought
so y'all knew I was googling it while I used you as a
I'm just
distraction?
saying. And that was my suggestion from the beginning for you to let us know where you were going with this. I just feel like you put me on the spot for no reason. But it's fine. Go ahead, Petty.
Um, so my simplified definition, actually, let me find Themus's super chat because I didn't realize Themus said he's on spirit. Um, let me see. I would like to play this very important video.
I thought you were
Okay.
frozen.
So this is very important for Themis to understand, depending on what happens on Spirit Airlines. So let me present this really quickly. Can y'all see the screen?
Yes.
If you get to heaven and you don't find me there, you have gone to hell. That's not heaven.
So just giving Themis a heads up, if I'm not there, that is what it is. That is what it is. Enjoy your flight on Spirit, if you are being serious. So, respectability politics. The foundation of it, I think, is that a minority will be accepted if they, at least this is how I think it applies to me as a black man, or you as a black woman, or LGBT, any minority will be accepted if they tone down the thing that makes them different. I guess the idea that your rights and your opportunities and sometimes your safety are tied to conforming to another culture or the main culture standard. So I guess it's an acknowledgement that the bigotry exists, but it says that it's the responsibility of the minority to not rock the boat. I'm trying to say it as best as I can. For example, maybe an example would be better. Telling another black person that wearing a hoodie or sagging their pants is automatically suspicious, or saying that wig and weave is making you look ghetto or such. Maybe a gay man being told to be more masculine to avoid being bashed, or of course, telling another black person not to give their child an unconventional name because they might be denied for a job in the future. Thoughts?
For me, I've always looked at respectability politics as a strategic assimilation into a hegemonic culture, community, society, whatever it is. That's the way that I understood it. Yes, thank you, Ryerson. But I've never subscribed to it. Like I've at least been conscious about the degrees in separation, or the degrees with which I adhere to it. Because we all, like, on a subconscious level, on an unconscious level, we all engage in respectability politics. Some people don't even realize that they're engaging in it, and they are. And that's just a part of living in this kind of society. But yeah, it's not my thing. It's not my thing. I believe in cultivating representation that is beneficial and healthy. A sort of we were talking about it earlier, like what's the word? It's oh God, like a moral majority. I don't even know if that's possible, but just cultivating an image that yeah, a moral majority.
So, Annalisa, where would you draw the line between something that's considered respectability politics versus something that's considered just a standard of behavior that you might think someone should have, or the assimilation that people naturally kind of do in societies? Where would you draw the line between respectability politics and then those other things that I just named?
Yeah, I was going to ask regarding what y'all said about the image of those two women being walked like a dog last week by that the rapper. While Annalisa gathers her thoughts.
Sorry, no, I'm so sorry. You're asking to differentiate, or where you draw the line?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
asking how you distinguish between the two. But before you answer, Journey with Karen sent $2 for Themis's return flight. Thank you. Everything helps. Lady M said, men only care about what you can do for him. Stop thinking that a man might SA. Most men will most likely SA unless he finds a good reason not to. Lady
Like
M.
that's the sad. Thank you, Lady M. And that's like a soul crushing reality. I'm sorry, she's right.
Wake Up Makeup Slays sent $2 for Themis's oxygen for the flight. Thank you. I just don't understand. I'm
The little-
in the Dominican Republic and everybody makes fun of me, but when Themis is just having a regular flight, everybody wants to send him money. I just don't. I don't understand. Why aren't we shaming Themis and making fun of Themis? That's what we need to do. Just putting that in the air for the comments if they would like to. Not inciting anything, of course not. Journey with Karen, $2. He may need a snack. Yeah. Okay. But yes, Annalisa, we are asking you, where is that line between respectability politics and, I guess, enforcing a communal standard?
That's a little more difficult. That's a little bit more difficult to answer because I think I think you kind of have to look back historically and look into things that are historically or intrinsically linked to slavery or some of the social or social, political, and cultural norms that have shaped a particular demographic, like slavery. These things have really shaped the Black community. And that's why when we talk about respectability politics, part of adhering to the dominant society, dominant culture, is getting as far away from that as possible. And I think that I don't know, maybe that's where you would draw it. Like anything that is intrinsically connected or rooted in slavery, or that's a hard question to answer. Honestly, I'm going to need advice. Like I don't give advice, but now I need advice. So go figure, because I wouldn't know. I feel like that would have to be a collective decision. I wouldn't know.
So I think I completely, well, I think it's wrong. First of all, I think respectability politics are wrong, but I do understand why people abide by it. Your clothing choice, for example, assuming you don't have like a safety concern or loose chains or something at your job, I don't think they have a bearing on your work. Your hairstyle, if you want to wear an afro, if you want to wear straight hair or weave, wig, or whatever, I don't think this has a bearing on your work generally, unless maybe you're like a hairstyle. Well, no, not even a hairstylist, because you're doing people's hair, not getting yours done. But I do understand the idea of people conforming or abiding by respectability politics, because that's the world we live in, right? I can't go to my job looking any type of way. I might be fired. That is the unfortunate reality that we live in. What I don't understand is, why is respectability politics, I understand, outside of my home. Why do I come back to my home and it's still here? I feel like it should be a safe place. My home in this case being the Black community. I understand going out externally and there being a standard that you have to meet, where people will look at you a certain way or whatever have you. So you have to, I guess, be a respectable Negro. But that I go back to the community, why is it that there's still a conversation about wig and weave or bonnets or sagging or whatever have you? Is that conversation necessary in the community?
In terms of, I don't know, I think that's a good question. I think there are many reasons that people like bring these things up within our own community. And to me, like some of the reasons are better than others. If you are trying to help people to embrace their natural hair or something, and you're talking about how natural hair is beautiful and, whatever, then that's fine, versus saying like, saying derogatory things, I guess you could say, about people who wear weaves, for example. So like, I don't know, there's just different reasons behind why people do stuff. I think if people like within our community are saying certain things because they hate the things in the same way that like some people outside of our community look at certain things about our community negatively, just because of, I don't know, stereotypes or whatever the case. I think that's not good. But I think it's case by case.
Again, I understand. Well, Annalisa, did you want to answer before I respond?
I did, because I think it's interesting. I don't think that we have, we're not going to get there. Like, we don't have a oh God, this sounds bad. We don't have like a homogenous, we're not on code. The Black community is, it's sort of like siphoned off. There are different sections there. There's a class system that we all adhere to, and even the class system is, there's a lot of interplay between the class system and respectability politics, and the higher you are in socioeconomics and socioeconomic class, the more you adhere to like political correctness and respectability politics. But I don't think that the Black community as a whole, I don't think that we adhere to a homogenous cultural, social, political norm or hegemonic ideology. Like, we're not on the same page as a community, as a people, and we're not a secular people, right? So part of that is getting the right information out there, like deciding what the right information is, and then great minds think alike and birds of a feather flock together. You kind of have to get people on board with the idea and slowly integrate the ideology and all of these things into our culture. You have to change the culture as well, right? Like, everything needs to be revitalized. I don't think that it's not a linear. This is not a linear a linear solution or problem. I think it's like so multifaceted and complex. But the Black community, we're so far from that because we're all over the place. Like, okay. We're not on.
So I'll narrow the question because I feel like y'all are copping out. I don't disagree, by the way. Regarding the picture that we looked at last week, I'll put it on screen again, just in case anybody didn't get to catch it last week. But the man holding the two women by the hair while they're on the ground.
Not again.
No, we don't have to go into that specific. Well, actually, yeah, let's. What do you both still hold the same opinion on the picture, right? Annalisa, you believe
it's disgusting. I didn't like it. Yeah.
My personal opinion about the picture was that woman can do whatever she wants. But like, personally, I don't like the picture myself. Or if she asked me like, hey, should I post this? I'd probably be like, no. Okay. So
outside of personal, do you feel like this is harmful to your image as Black women and that it should be policed?
I don't think that I mean, I can see how, people will see certain images and say, oh, this makes Black people look this way or that way. But like, if I were just scrolling, like randomly scrolling, I would just keep scrolling past that picture. I probably wouldn't think anything of it. Like, I wouldn't attach us together because we're all Black. Like, I wouldn't, in terms of that photo, like, it wouldn't make me think anything. I wouldn't be like, oh my goodness, if people see this, they're going to think I'm like I don't think, no, I wouldn't think anything of that picture if I was just randomly scrolling on Instagram.
So you don't think we should have a communal standard to not do this?
Wait, but I think it's easy. Okay, I think it's easy. It's easy for all of us to say that now, right? Like, we're not going to internalize that, and it's not going to have an effect on our psyche, and we're not going to internalize it subconsciously or unconsciously. That's fine now that we're adults in our early 20s, mid 20s or 30s, where our frontal lobes are fully developed. That's fine. But when you're younger and it's not an isolated incident, right? Like, it's a part of the cultural zeitgeist in the Black community. It's a part of the image that rap and social media and other
but that's the thing, though. That's the thing. the vast majority of Black women are not down being walked anywhere. The vast majority, I can guarantee.
No,
I don't even
no, but So that's not my point. My point is, if you take like young men whose minds are still young men or young women whose minds are still developing, if there's and again, this is not an isolated incident, right? Like, there are a lot of images. If we want to go down this dusty rabbit hole, we could, but there are a lot of images in which Black women are putting themselves in really denigrating positions, in a TV show or for a photo in a music
but
video,
that's the
whatever
thing
it
too.
is.
Like, why is that the case? Is what I was about to get at. The reason I said most people aren't doing certain things, the reason I brought that up is because of what you're saying right now. There is a negative representation. There is a lot of negative representation of Black people in the media. There is. Black women, are portrayed a certain way a lot. Black men are portrayed a certain way a lot. And then that becomes the thing that sells, right? So like this certain image of, I don't know, let's say like more current female, Black female rappers. Let's use that as an example. As if there are not many, many other Black female rappers that don't do some of these things. And I'm not saying there's anything necessarily like whatever, they're doing what they're doing, but like there are lots that aren't doing that, but those ones will not get put on. Those ones will not be the ones that are signed by these major companies and marketed in the same.
And that's exactly why I'm not talking about them. That's why they don't matter. That doesn't matter because they don't matter. So,
but it's about marketing though.
Right, but who's driving them? Who's driving the industry? Who's driving the culture? Like, that's almost a separate conversation. If we're just looking at that picture and whether or not it's a detriment, for me the answer is yes. If you have a growing mind, like adolescents, children, whoever, looking at this picture, it's going to be very difficult for them to look at the picture, look at women with Black women with braids and weave and long hair, and it's difficult to compartmentalize. It's difficult for them to grapple with the psychological schema of that doesn't represent Black women. It's a small, like, I'm just saying, young minds can't do what our minds do. Right, like that's the difference between young people and old people. They think that they can, but realistically they can't, and to that extent, it's harmful.
Yeah, I understand that, and I think, in fact, I know for sure that one of my points that I talked about last week when we talked about this, was that last week? Yeah, mm-hmm. When we talked about this was that, children seeing these types of images and how that can be harmful. So I'm with you there. I'm not disagreeing.
Wait, isn't that a moot point? Well, you can continue. Don't people say that about like Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion? And I'm like, well, their art isn't for children in the first place. No?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that too. But like, what was I saying? In terms of the people, like children seeing these images and things like that, the thing is, certain things are marketed for a reason, and I get why, these things are harmful. But I'm saying that if everybody put on a suit tomorrow, they're still going to have certain things marketed. Like, it's going to be pushed regardless, because that's why these things, these people and these images that are, representative of the Black community don't actually represent most of the Black community. Like most Black women are not, don't have any photos like the one that we saw last week.
But do you think that
so, like, why would
society, do you think the broader society thinks that, or do you think that the broader society believes that most Black women are upstanding, successful?
But that's exactly what I'm saying, though. There is a reason why the broader society makes sure that those images are constantly out there, regardless of whether or not.
It's not the broader society doing it. It's not.
Are you serious?
The broader society.
Every single major media. corporation, like
No, we
distribution
can't.
companies.
Okay, it's not 1970. Like, we have our own media outlets, we have our own media companies, we have our own networks. Like, it's not the broader
Name the Black
society.
distribution companies. I'm talking about like major distribution companies where Black people
There are major distribution companies that are Black owned that promote
that
degeneracy.
are at the top of the food chain in media. Name them, because I'm not sure. I'll look them up.
They don't have to be at the top of the food chain, but they have control over the Black image.
So can I ask, why is it a bad image? The image again. Either one of you can answer. Well, Annalisa, because you have the most smoke with the image. Why is it a bad image? Okay, Kay, why is it a bad image?
Again, I just personally, like, that's just not a picture that I personally like. In terms of it being a bad image, I can see the negative associations that people would have. And I get why people would think it was harmful. Like, I completely understand that. I get how people, see it as degrading, all of that.
So it has to do with
Annalisa.
She couldn't handle the smoke. So it has to do with Annalisa's back. I don't know if you heard what Kate said, Anna, regarding why it's a bad image, but it sounds like it has to do with how people will interpret it.
Yeah. Nobody, I don't think anybody said otherwise.
Yeah, I think that it's because there are so many different ways that things can be represented, right? Like, you can have a woman in a bikini. You can have a woman in an artistic, like, nude figure drawing class. You can have a woman doing lots of different things where skin is showing or they're in a certain position that aren't seen negatively. And then there are other things that will be seen negatively. And I think, like, the context of that photo would be seen negatively by
most human beings on the planet are going to see that picture, and they're not going to, like, jump out of their seat and, like, oh my God, what a beautiful piece of artwork. Like, I think if you objectively look at that picture without any context, I think it's egregious.
I thought they were just had like a kink or something. I didn't perceive it as.
I didn't know what I don't know what they were doing, and I don't know much about I don't know really anything about any of the people that were in that photo. So maybe that's why.
I don't know anything about them. I don't follow them. I don't consume content from them. If I'm looking at the picture objectively, if I'm just scrolling through on social media, if I look at that, it's going to give me the ick. Period. Point blank. I don't need context. I don't need to know who these people are. I don't need to consume any of their content. I'm looking at the picture. I'm looking at the content of the picture. And it's the feeling that I get, viscerally speaking, is ick. It gives me the ick.
CJ says, aging myself, but when I think of Girls Gone Wild or Spring Break debauchery, I imagine white women, but this isn't the overwhelming image of white women. How come?
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. Like, purposefully, there are tons of different representations of white people in the media. Like, it's very diverse, the types of representation that is out there. But in terms of, like, the way Black people are represented in the media, it's not as diverse. It's getting more diverse now, but it's not as diverse. There are certain images that people are generally portrayed as in the media, and those are the things that get pushed into the algorithm or whatever for people to consume.
You don't think that white people engage in respectability politics, and that has something to do with the reason that
the whole premise of respectability politics is about the marginalized group doing the certain things.
But it's not just, it wouldn't just be race. Class would also be class would also be like,
I was just about to say that.
there are different variables. White people engage in respectability politics, and the reason that we don't think of white women and cultural debauchery is because of their engagement with it, and because of the way that they covet their image.
I don't feel like white people engage in respectability politics. Well, I do feel like they do, but I feel like white people are more likely to make whatever they're doing the standard so that it's not considered
that's
something
that's still respectability politics. Like if they're operating or if they're pushing an image that doesn't accurately represent them, they're literally, that's what they're engaging. They're engaging in respectability politics.
But the thing about it, the difference here is that no one has to, in America, do anything because they're white. Like, whiteness is not the reason that
they do because they're white.
No.
They have.
No.
I just want to.
How do you think power?
I didn't finish.
Power? Okay, how is power
Annalisa, I did not finish the statement. I didn't finish.
How do we maintain these things? Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so the reason that I said that people, in terms of respectability politics, are not doing anything because they're white, like the race aspect isn't part of respectability politics for white people. It's not like, oh, since they're white, they have to do this instead of this. Whereas any other race, that is an aspect of certain things. Like whether it be
I fundamentally disagree. I think that they understand. They understand the imperative to do something because they're white. They understand that there is a cultural,
wait.
There's a cultural and social imperative
Annalisa,
to live a certain life, to go down a certain path because they're white. They engage in it. I don't understand. Okay.
But I mean, based on what respectability politics is, what it means, it's about the marginalized groups. Now, I get what you're saying. There are people who are
it's not just about marginalization. It's not just.
Respectability politics is about marginalized groups.
But class also is.
I know. Yes, socioeconomic status. You can be in a marginalized socioeconomic status. Yes, I agree with that. I mean, I'm just saying, though, in terms of race, because notice that we didn't bring up how much money or anything anyone else had. We didn't talk about it. We talked about Black people doing certain things, why in our own communities. Nobody started talking about anything. In fact, one of the questions that I was going to ask earlier, but the conversation started going, was when Petty, I think, said, why do I have to come home to this same type of you didn't say criticism, but something like that, right? Like you said, why do I have to also engage in respectability politics amongst my own people? So I was going to ask you, Petty, do you think that it depends, like within the Black community, like, do you feel like you have to engage, or people try to do that when they feel like they're in a different, I don't know, maybe socioeconomic level than you, or maybe a different age group than you? Like, does it feel like they're punching down on you? Or do you think that it's just in general, regardless of levels in terms of any social groups or whatever?
Intraracially, I think it's just all around. It's not different groups of hierarchy or anything. I think it's just kind of general.
Mm-hmm.
This is the last thing I'm going to say with respect to respectability. I mean, this conversation is like I feel like we're circling the drain and I'm exhausted. But for me, respectability politics is very much about, again, is strategic assimilation into homogenous or hegemonic culture, society, class, so on and so forth. And I think that in order for white people or any group of people to maintain anything, status, power, wealth, cultural superiority, whatever it is, they have to strategically engage in respectability politics. They have to strategically assimilate. And for me, foundationally, that is what it is. It's the assimilation, assimilating your behavior, your culture, your vernacular, whatever it is, into a particular environment, society, culture, white people, just because they may have invented the wheel doesn't mean they don't continue to use it. They're very much, they're still using it.
So then that goes back to that original question then, Annalicia, where do you draw the line? How come, because earlier you said, I'm not, with the whole respectability politics thing, but you are okay with certain, social norms, I guess you would say. So
because
like,
for me, the distinction is engaging in respectability politics at the behest of, or I guess when it's rooted or maybe sort of guided by slavery or racism or inferiority, things like that. I don't believe in that. Like I've never believed in that. I've never felt it. I've always had a very strong sense of self. I've always been like, that's just not my thing. So
what's an example of one of those? Because I don't think I understand what that exactly.
So a perfect example is Black people don't tip, and we overcompensate by tipping more than we need to, by gratuitously tipping. Absolutely no, you're going to get this tip, you're going to be happy, and that's the end of it. That for me is an example, and it's rooted in inferiority and slavery, because again, Black people have been disenfranchised, they're disadvantaged, they're socioeconomically at the bottom, blah 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 blah. So that for me would be an example.
But over tipping wouldn't be respectability politics. Over tipping?
I think that for me, I think that would be. I think that you're engaging in a behavior so that you can present as something different, as what you want the society to see, what you want society to see you as, which is a person that tips. Like that tips
so
the
just
same
the
way,
mindset behind it.
A Black person that tips the same way as a white person and an Asian person, and it's the perception that that white people and Asian people tip a lot, or they tip gratuitously, and therefore we must do the same.
Okay.
You're saying that white people engage in respectability politics as well. Do they in a meaningful way? Regarding what someone in the comments said about the Crown Act, which is an act that's being passed, if it hasn't passed already, I'm not sure, so that Black people can wear their hair in the workplace kinky and coily without having to style, straighten it, or otherwise change the texture to something more European looking. I don't feel like there are laws like this for white people regarding anything. I mean, Donald Trump's hair is what it is. However, I honestly feel like if Obama skipped like getting a lineup one too many weeks, I feel like he wouldn't have became president off of that alone.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that much about, I'm gonna be honest, like I don't know, and it's intentional. I don't know that much about white people. I don't know that much about their plight. But I will say that, or at least I will, I mean, this could be conjecture. I'm not definitively sure, but maybe was there a time where white women like had to fight for rights in the job place? Like, I don't know. Somebody can come up here and give me advice about like how rough things were for Becky, like, at the turn of the century or whatever it is. But I'm pretty sure white women, they were shaking it rough in the workplace, and like things, I don't know if it was legislatively, I don't know if it was like legislation that had to be implemented, but I'm pretty sure it was they were shaking it rough in the workplace.
But that was because they were women, not because they were white.
That's still. Oh, are we talking about marginalization? Wait, are we off of respectability politics?
No, we still are, but we're talking about like the reason behind it being whiteness. And that I was saying earlier, and Petty was just asking, like, are there situations? What situations are there where like being white is the thing you have to worry about? Like the one about, jobs or whatever of white women back in the day, that was because they were women, not because they were white.
Okay, so we're strictly talking about race?
Yes.
Exclusively? And your question is, and Petty, you're saying that part of Black women assimilating into the corporate space, into the corporate world, entails
actually having legislation implemented so that they can wear their natural hair, whereas white women didn't have to?
Yeah.
Yes, because it has to do with Black people's hair texture versus, like, my hair is in a ponytail. A white woman's hair in the same ponytail with a different texture is seen a totally different way than mine is by a lot of people.
Is there a question? I hope we're not asking why. We know the answer to that. Is there, like, what you said that to say what? Sorry, I think I missed it.
I mean, well, you were up here talking about white people are also adhering to respectability politics, and I asked, in any meaningful way? No, I don't feel like it. Not when there literally has to be a law for me to wear my hair like this to work, even though this is how my hair grows. So I feel like the point you were arguing was negligible. The way that they have to engage in respectability politics, I feel, is negligible when you're setting the standard.
Right, but I never said that they're engaging in the same way, and I never. So if we're saying who engages more meaningfully, I think my argument was never that white people they're engaging more than any other group or class of people. What I said is that white people also have to engage in it,
Yeah, but
despite the
it felt
fact
like
that
a
they change.
whataboutism. Like, the police, they kill us too. Like, okay, all right, but not like in a meaningful way though. So why bring it up? Not you specifically, but well, yeah, you specifically.
I brought it. I can't remember. It was something was said specifically, and that was my retort to whatever was said. I don't think I brought it up like in I didn't bring it up in vain. Something was said, and I thought then that just came to mind. But it's not like I'm not trying to play the Olympics with anybody. My only point was that maybe somebody said that white people don't engage in it, and so that's why I said no. Well, they do. Like, realistically, everyone must engage in respectability politics. I think the differences are the degrees with which they engage in respectability politics, and maybe the effects or potential effects of engaging in it, and what those outcomes could be. But that was never my point. Obviously, like, white people obviously are not. They don't have the same cultural and social burdens as other groups and classes of people. But that was never my argument, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, we have a quick message from Mr. Al Sharpton.
Okay. What, like, this picture has been up here for a long time. I thought you were going to say something about it.
Well, we were talking about sorry, I think my mic is cutting out. How do y'all feel about that?
About what?
He needs some protein. That's what I would say. You gotta have the protein, and then you gotta weight train. You gotta get in the gym. You gotta pump the machines. Gotta pick up the weights. I use like a really clean one. I think it's Rivulus. It's really good. It's pretty clean. I would suggest. That's what I would suggest to Mr. Al.
Yeah, but before we get to the super chats, how does this play into sorry, I think my mic's cutting out. How does this play into respectability politics?
I don't know what you're doing, Petty, but I hear you laughing. I hear you laughing, so I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay. You wanted to talk about TikTok today? Before we talk about TikTok, let's read some super chats. Could you read them, Kay?
Yeah. Wake up, makeup, slay. Just wait until the Freaknik documentation. Thank you for the $2. Lady Biz said Prince Petty mentioned hairstyles in the workplace. The workplace in the US made it their business to make Black people hair and styles unacceptable in the workplace, unfortunately. That is very true.
That was in the super chat. Why did I put that up there? Oopsie. Seeking Technique says, anyway, marginalized groups can punch down. They will. Black, bad, worse, Black women, child, worst, Black with special need. Born into a room with a crooked floor. I don't feel like I read that correctly. No, I don't. There was one from earlier. Miss Deeds asked, does the panel believe a parent should be liable for the poor behavior of a minor or teen in school, jail for truancy, or recently the mom of the 6-year-old that powed his teacher and the mom got charged?
Absolutely. Of course. Yes.
Okay.
So do you think that, Annalicia, do you think the child and the parent, so like let's say someone's child is, misbehaving at school, what should happen in terms of the parent?
I think so. It's never binary, it's never linear. It's always, kids are complex, these issues are difficult, but I think it's a parent's responsibility to work consciously and to work meaningfully and vigilantly with the school and the supporting staff, with the pediatricians, to you have to build scaffolding around your child so that when things like this happen, you have something to hold on to redirect you and really help you in these moments. I think that parents are responsible and liable for the behavior. Like, I can't remember if it was, I don't know who said it, but when you don't deal with a child, that child becomes, I can't remember the saying exactly, the quote, but essentially what it means is if things are not dealt with in the home, children tend to become society's problem, right? And they kind of whatever issues they have, they kind of unleash it out into society. And so parents are responsible for for that wrath, or that the trail of destruction.
I mean, but when we talk about liability, of course parents are responsible. Like, parents should be raising their kids to be, whatever. But if we're talking about liability, let's say a child, fights with another kid at school, should parents be charged with
what? No, but liable doesn't mean legal. You're not legally, like, even the question, did she say like legally?
I mean, but liable. Well,
live. We don't have. We're not talking about, like, no one's going to jail. No one. Right, but like,
what should be the thing that happens? So what can, outside of just normal, parents should take care of their kids. We know that, that's a given. But in the case that certain things are happening at school, let's say you're raising your kid, the best you can, whatever, and the kid does something at school, what should now happen to the parent? What do you think?
Like, just so we're clear, liability simply means responsibility. Okay.
Wait. Let me ask two separate questions. Let's talk about the legal aspect first, and then we can talk about colloquially, should the parent have any punitive action against them if their child is acting out in school. So regarding the child who, in this case, I forgot what the people's names were, but he went to school, shot his teacher. The mom was charged. Do y'all agree or disagree with the mom being charged?
I would. It's negligence. Like, every state has their own law. Here we have our own laws. But if they found cause to charge her with negligence or whatever they charged her with, it's because they had to do an investigation, right? So I would say she should be legally liable. A 6-year-old shouldn't even know what a gun looks like. In my world, I work with kids. I have a family. No, absolutely not. Your parents are legally liable for a 6-year-old unloading the clip on someone. Like, what? Again, there are degrees of severity, and like levels to this, but liability with respect to responsibility, that is every parent's liability.
But that's why liability makes it different, because now we're talking, that's a legal term. It means like by law now.
That's why I separated it into one conversation about liability and one conversation about just consequence. Should the parent face consequence for or anything like that?
Right, but you just because you're posing two different questions doesn't mean the answer isn't the same. They're not mutually exclusive. In this particular scenario, the mother should be legally liable and socially liable, and liable in just, I guess, as a mother.
If
So
a child,
if you give two different maybe give two separate examples, this to me is not a mutually exclusive.
We're waiting
scenario.
to get to the second.
Annalicia, if a child assaults another child at school or whatever at school, do you think the parent should be legally held responsible?
Sorry, say it again.
If a child punches another child in the face, should the parent be held legally responsible or liable for that?
Right, but what is that like? Do you like that's a really so a kid? But
that happens every day.
What it happens every day, but it doesn't just happen that way, right? Was the child provoked? Like there are so many variables that
wait. You're speaking about. Why is this different from the gun? When we were talking about the gun, you said the parent should be liable. When we were talking about the child beating someone, it was, they might have provoked him.
So there were no extenuating circumstances. You're telling me that a child went up to another child and just punched the child?
Children literally, what? Kids hit other kids. It happens.
Right, but it doesn't happen for no reason. Either that kid could clinically have clinically been diagnosed with something. A child could be provoked. A child could have been bullied. To say that.
So
these
like the
happen,
same with a firearm.
Let me be very clear. Nothing just happens. I don't know if anybody. Nothing. Children don't just do anything for absolutely no reason. Like that's just not the way that it works. You might have outliers, but as a general matter, children behave whether if they're behaving violently, maladaptively, or deviantly, they're doing it for a reason. There is a cause. There's a catalyst. There's a reason for behavior always.
Well, okay. I mean, anyone could say there's a reason for anything all the time. But if we're talking about legal responsibility, I was just trying to see, like, is that because at first it seemed like it was your viewpoint across the board. Like, yes, absolutely, they should be liable. But then because liable is like a legal word, it's about like, the law.
Liable is not liable just means responsibility. It's not a legal term.
It means legally responsible. Look it up.
No, it means it literally means it's responsibility.
Look it up.
I actually did. It's responsibility.
Okay, so regarding.
Thank you, Themis.
Answered according to law. So
law.
That means right. But hold on.
Legal.
Let me.
Illegal. It's about law. It's about the legality.
So let's get into scenarios. We have three different scenarios because I'm really confused about Annalicia's position now. We have a scenario that is the reality where the child got a gun and did what he did. We have a scenario where the child used a baseball bat or another common object, blunt object, and we have a scenario where the child used his fist. Annalicia, between these three things, is anything different to you as far as the parent being liable?
So we have the 6-year-old who killed someone.
He didn't unalive them. He just shot them. They survived.
Okay. So we have the 6-year-old who shot someone. What's the next one?
One with a baseball bat and one with his fist.
What did the one with the baseball bat do? Sorry.
Hit somebody with it at school. These are all the same scenario. The child goes to school and attacks somebody. The only thing that's different is what weapon they're using.
Oh, so all these kids are 6 years old?
Yes, it's the same child, just in different scenarios.
Okay. Then absolutely, yes. My answer is still yes. Yes.
So if a child goes to school and punches another student, you believe the parent should be liable?
liable insofar as they're responsible for remedying the situation and dealing with the aftermath and making sure that the child moving forward is given the necessary tools to deal with whatever issues they're having. Yeah.
And the same with the firearm.
No, so I don't, like, you guys are trying to, you can't, this is not a one size fits all, and the fact that you're doing that tells me
No,
you don't,
I'm
you don't
asking you to make
understand,
sure that
like,
I'm asking
you
you,
don't
is your
understand
answer different?
behavior. That's not the way that kids work. That's not the way that life works.
See, but then that is where, and I think really here the only disconnect is that the word liable is being used. Because I don't think anyone disagrees that parents should be, held responsible in some kind of way. I don't
No,
think
I think
anyone
that they should.
Yeah. But when we're
I-
talking about liability, we're talking about by law, should parents be held legally responsible for things that their children do at school?
Yeah, and my answer is yes. My answer is yes.
Okay. Regardless of what it is.
I mean, obviously a bat is different than a gun. Can a bat still inflict great harm? Absolutely it can. Of course it can.
Okay, because even with adults, with assault, there are varying degrees. The same thing is not gonna happen if you, I don't know, do one certain thing on one spectrum of hitting someone as another. So like that
we
would
have extreme ends, but even so even if we're not going to vacillate from like extreme to mild instances, parents are still, and in my opinion should still be liable, because we're talking civil law. We're like, so there's civil law, there's criminal law, there's pardon?
Do you think they should like go to jail or pay a fine?
I think it just depends on the damage that's been caused, right? And that's why I'm saying these situations are not as binary and rigid as you guys are presenting them to be. Like, that's not the way that
situation is binary and rigid like that. That's why there are courts of law where these things are determined. So we're not saying like, oh, no matter what. If it's going to court, it's going to be decided upon in a certain type of way. It's going to go through a certain type of process. It's supposed to. So like that is a given.
So if it's a given, why are you asking me if they should be liable?
Because the disconnect was when you were not thinking of it legally. When liable is a legal.
I was thinking about it legally. But liable, like, for me,
you literally said it doesn't have to do with legally. I
said it doesn't have to be, because I still said liability is responsibility. You're still responsible for the aftermath and for dealing with what happens after the incident. You're still like, I'm applying liability in a, not philosophically, but like in a more what's the word? Somebody in the chat help me, like, because I'm losing it. I need advice. Like, I'm losing it. I'm saying that it's not only, or I'm not looking at it through the legal lens exclusively. I'm saying that liability, to the extent that for me, when I looked at the word, it said responsibility. Parents are responsible for what their children are doing, whether they're at home or they're not.
So regarding my thoughts on legal liability, when it comes to the firearm specifically, I think this is generally going to be a case of negligence. Assuming it's the parent's firearms, like it might be that he went to a store and got, I don't know, probably not, but went to a friend's house or some other person, right? But if it's your house specifically and your gun, then I'm going to call this negligence. At least that's how I think people will look at it legally. So I would hold the parent liable for that, since I guess children don't really have the capacity to.
It's not like they can go to the store and buy these things. Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely.
Someone said I'm using it colloquially. That's how. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you,
but
guys.
we're not at that part of the conversation yet. We specifically.
But well, I don't know what to tell you. That's how I was applying.
You tell me how you feel legally, and then when we get to the part of the conversation that's not legal, we can talk about that, which we will now. After I give my thoughts. Thank you very much. But yeah, I think for the gun, it's going to be probably the parent's going to be liable. For the baseball bat, this is. The reason I think about this differently is because I don't think a baseball bat is something that you like lock in a safe and that you have to keep under lock and key at your home. This is something that can be like someone playing baseball in the backyard or something. So I think about liability really differently in that instance. Like you said, Annalicia, one shoe doesn't fit all. I wasn't trying to corner you into a binary, by the way. You could have definitely answered how I'm answering now.
I did. I did. I answered it that way.
So yeah, when it comes to the baseball bat, I think the only reason I would be holding the parent liable in that case is if they told the child literally, here's a baseball bat, go to school and assault someone. Now we can talk about you being what's it called? Culpable. I don't know how to say the word.
Was it libel?
When you're not accomplice, but when you're like instructing someone to do something as far as a crime, now you do take some liability, even though the person is still liable for doing the crime. And then the fist, I don't think, again.
So, so you're talking about like an wow, okay.
So with your fist, again, I'm going to say, like with the baseball bat, I generally think the child's going to be responsible at the school, or at least with the legal, or however he's being held responsible. And the parents don't generally have liability in this case, unless, again, they're instructing their child to go to school and do violence to someone else. Then I would say they're culpable. Now, off of the legal aspect, unless Kay or Anna wanted any last thoughts on that.
I just think I would love to know what people in the chat think. I hope that by the time we get to the part about like phone call, when people start calling in, that someone can speak on their opinion about that, because, you know, if parents are held legally responsible for the actions of their children at school, where does the line get drawn and what does that look like? I think that's just an interesting question for people to answer.
So so I guess the way that how can I say, the way that I would look at it is whether we think that this is fair or just. I guess maybe that's not something that I even really considered in the hypothetical, because the parents of the other child, or whoever was affected in the incident, if they're in their legal bounds, and they're operating within, their sort of legal parameters of the law, they're able to file a lawsuit, right? Like civilly or whatever it is. And parents have to be liable for that.
Okay. Did you have any thoughts as well, Mr. Sharpton? Okay. So regarding non-legal liability, right now, Annalicia's colloquial liability, what type of responsibility should the parent hold when their child is acting out at school or causing chaos at school, doing violence onto students? How much, if any, liability should the parent have non-legally? Should there be punishment to the parent? Should there be any consequence for the, like, what does liability look like in this case?
For the kid that shot someone?
Yeah, or just assault or anything else.
Well, if you're a parent, you have to investigate and figure out what's happening. Like, again, kids don't just wake up, like, I don't know. Okay. I'm not going to fight the hypothetical. Parents have to be responsible for following through and trying to figure out what triggered the behavior, what's happening with the child, what resources they need to tap into in order to help the child and figure out what's happening. The parents are just responsible for making sure that the incident doesn't happen again, and to make sure that the child has whatever tools they need to mitigate these incidences from reoccurring. And they're also responsible for, I would say, reaching out to the family of the child that was hit or affected in the incident, and figuring things out. And again, it's like you have to be working in tandem with the school, kind of working in tandem with the other family. So it's a lot of things, in my opinion, that would need to happen. And that's the extent to which I believe they should be responsible.
Okay.
I think that, in a utopia, that something happens with, someone's child at school, the parents, meet with the school, figure out what they can do, figure out like put some kind of plan in place, follow up with it, make sure things are consistent, implement different strategies at home, make sure all the different accommodations are being met at school. Like that would be perfect. It would be perfect. But like in real life, that's just not how it goes. So like when you ask that question, Petty, I'm not sure of the answer for that, because in the way a lot of schools are now, that's just not feasible resource wise, parent involvement wise. Sometimes like just certain things just aren't feasible for certain people in certain situations at certain times. So I'm not sure how that would look. If a child does something at school and they get in trouble, let's say they serve like, I don't know, a detention or something after school, the parent, then what happens to the parent? Like, is that what we're asking? How does the parent get affected by the negative or whatever thing that their child did at school? I'm not sure how that can be enforced. I'm not sure at all like how that would go. I just don't see how that could.
So I'll actually pose
in our current society.
So since you don't know the answer, I'll actually pose that question to Annalicia. Also, the link is being posted in the chat for anyone for the last 30 minutes who wanted to come up with any agreements and disagreements as we close out our thoughts on this. Annalicia, I'm going to pose the question to you. It looks like no one's thinking of punitive action on the part of the parents. We're all just thinking about, I guess, liability insofar as how parents are liable for their children, as far as making sure your child has good outcomes and such, and being responsible for your child's actions and to police them as a parent would. What happens, Annalicia, if a parent cannot complete these tasks? Your child goes to school, assaults another student, and now it's your responsibility to police your child. What happens if you can't complete the task?
If you can, what do you mean? If you can't if you can't get the behavior under control?
Yeah.
Well, so the way that I look at kind of like the punitive ramifications, I think there's a moral judgment generally that society imposes on parents who have children that behave in a certain way. So that's one area in which, and believe me, parents are affected by that, right? Like parents want to know that they did a good job, and part of the way that society can see that, or that's demonstrated, is when other parents and other people see their children or adolescents or whatever behaving in a manner that's morally acceptable or conducive to whatever environment. So that's one thing. But I think that when parents can't get the behavior under control, and you're saying that every resource, everything has been tapped into and it's been exhausted, like you're saying that they're at the end of the rope.
I don't know. Look, what if they just don't try, or they can't? Yeah. What if everything's exhausted?
No, there's a difference. It's not that like if they don't try, that's something different. If they don't try,
okay. If they don't try, what's the punishment?
Then the child, the child. I think that the child should probably be removed. If a parent is not going to try, if they have no interest in doing what's in the best interest of their child, which would be to understand the behavior, figure the behavior out, and access the necessary and proper channels or outlets or resources in order to do so. If they just said, hey, like, I don't really care, that child is going to become society's problem one way or another. So if that's the feeling that the parent has, they shouldn't be a parent. That's my feeling.
So you think the child should be expelled and unable to enroll in public school?
Who said that?
I'm asking.
No, but we're talking about the parents' liability or the parents, what should be.
Are you saying removed from
enforced.
the parents' care? When you said removed, I didn't know what you were talking about.
Yeah, no,
Removed?
I'm saying if parents don't want to be parents, then they shouldn't be parents, because they're gonna do more harm.
Oh,
They're gonna do more harm than anyone else. If a parent does not want to be a good and effective parent, they're gonna inflict more harm and psychological damage than anything else would.
okay. So you're saying removed from the parents' care.
Right. Well, if we're talking about parents who are consciously negligent, yes.
And put where? Into the foster system?
Uh, I'm there's foster care, there's adoption at 6 years old. There's a high chance or like that child would more than likely be adopted because they're so young.
See, and you know that would I mean, the foster system as it is now is like very crowded. It's not really as good as it should be. There's a lot of issues within foster care. And if what you're saying were to happen, like kids, you know, continuously engaging in certain behaviors, and now their child is being put into the foster system, do you understand what would happen? Like that would the amount of children that would be taken away from parents if that were the rule would be huge. Like I'm not. I mean, I'm
that, but no, that actually is a qualify. Like if you work in like in children's aid or anything like that, that's something that they look at. If they have a case file and the parents are consciously and actively negligent, and they have no interest in doing what's in the best interest of their child, that's literally like that's
maybe
literally
it's different.
for those parents being unfit.
Maybe it's different in Canada because here it has to be pretty extreme for a child to be taken out of their home. And I say this,
if it has to be very extreme, then I understand why things are the way that they are for children in America. I wouldn't like that. I don't think it shouldn't have to get to extremes before intervention is implemented. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the intervention though, like, should start way, way before.
Right, but I'm dealing with the hypothetical that I was given. I'm dealing with a 6-year-old that has negligent parents that don't want to parent. So while I agree with you, and that's why I said parents are liable and parents are responsible, and that starts from birth and it doesn't end until really they're 18 and really beyond that. But based on the hypothetical that I'm given and the information that I'm given, this is what I think should be done.
Don't children in foster care tend to have higher levels of like emotional and behavioral problems like aggression? Wouldn't this
Right,
be
but if
contributing?
we're talking about a 6-year-old who has negligent parents who shot someone. So yeah, that's going to be an ongoing issue that they're going to really have to isolate. They're going to have to identify it, and they're going to have to clinically observe the child as they grow and clinically try to remedy whatever is happening. So and again, like it's not easy. It's not easy to deal with these types of situations and this this issue in society. But at the end of the day, if we're dealing with parents who are negligent or who don't want to parent, I've seen situations like that, and those situations, a lot of the time, it ends in fatality because they don't care enough about the child. Sometimes children starve to death in the care of their own children. I don't think it should get to extremes before intervention is sought. And I also don't think that that just because, and I understand every system with respect to childcare, every system is broken. Every system is broken, and in most cases, what we're dealing with is what is the best of the worst. Look, I didn't create the system. I just live in it, and that's part of the issue. But I think that there are other options that could be explored, and I don't think that the parents who don't want to be parents, I don't think that they should get those options.
Okay. A quick
super chats.
Curry Up and Eat says, holding me responsible means we're forgetting kids are impulsive and are learning as they grow. What say y'all? Are we skipping the child to hold the parents accountable? Are we doing wrong in skipping the child?
I think there just needs to be a different approach and a different method, which would be, like implemented within schools. And that would take a lot more resources than a lot of schools have. So it's just like a really hard situation, because Curry Up and Eat is right. Like kids are learning as they're growing, and certain things need to be, the kids need to be accountable for their own actions in certain instances, that are age appropriate and everything like that. So yeah, schools just need more support, more resources.
I actually I wouldn't agree with and I love you, Curry Up and Eat. I love you. But I would disagree insofar as I feel like Kadology. Insofar as I would disagree because I think that over time, like children are smart. Children are very, very intelligent, sentient beings. I think over time they're going to understand how much their life changed as a result of that incident. They might not at 6 years old. Obviously, they're not going to understand it cognitively in the way that an adult would. But over time, they're going to understand, why the trajectory of their life went where it went, and that for me is. That's a consequence that they would have to deal with. It's a negative consequence because it's going to change the trajectory of their life forever, right? So I don't think that anyone's sort of foregoing a child's accountability, but a 6-year-old, they're 6 years old, right? Like at 6, you can still, there's rehabilitation. That child is not, you don't write a 6-year-old off. That's just like, that's crazy. So, yeah.
Darcy the mom too. Thank you for the $9.99. 6-year-olds in America are usually considered too old to be adopted. Most end up aging out because they have experienced so much trauma, especially if they're Black. Snaps, all snaps, please, no claps.
So 6-year-olds in America are usually considered too. 6. I think that like. I don't know. I really don't think that it's that different in Canada. I think North America, but I think that a 6-year-old is going to have a much better chance of being adopted than a 12-year-old. And I think statistically you're going to have less 6-year-olds in the system than you are 7, 8, 9 and onward.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure 8 is where it goes down severely as far as your likelihood to be adopted. I'm not sure how likely it is if you're 6, but thank you for the super chat. Rochelle, I think you came up first. What say you? Y'all can. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Hold up, Mr. Sharpton. Did you have anything? Okay. Hello, Rochelle. Welcome.
Hello.
I
have quite a few thoughts on this. And I feel like this is like such a layered conversation because there's like so many avenues. Like I feel like there are like it depends on like the severity of what's going on. So I mean, if like a child is, being a distraction in class or being like rough with other kids, then it's like at that point, then definitely go to the parents, inform the parents, let them know what's going on, give the kid a warning. The parents will like hopefully take care of it from there. If it happens again, then go back to the parents, but then on top of that, punish the kid like by putting them in like a timeout or a corner from there. And if it like continues again after that, then I think at that point the parents would have to start looking at other alternatives, like maybe putting them, I don't know, in a separate class, maybe even going to separate schools. But then if it gets to the point where you have like a little, like what happened this past week with this little 6-year-old bringing a gun, then in that case, definitely hold the parents responsible for sure, because how can you send your 6-year-old off to school and not even know they're packing a gun? Like, at that point, it's definitely negligence at some point, and the kid probably isn't even aware of the ramification of what they're doing. So then, definitely when it comes to violence or weapons, hold the parents responsible. And at that point, I would say most likely put the kid in therapy, behavioral therapy, if that's an option. And if that doesn't even work, then unfortunately, I think it goes to the point of like taking the kids away from the parents, because I truly believe like the home is the foundation for kids, and it's like we can't. It's hard to expect like the teachers to take all that on, because the teachers aren't the parents, and many teachers aren't. They shouldn't like act as substitute parents, I believe. So if there's something going on in the home where the parents can't handle the children for whatever reason, whether it's mental health issues, drug use, abuse, whatever it may be, then I feel at that point it's up to other outside forces to step in and intervene.
So
Thank you for that. I agree. And can I just say I just wanted to add to that, because I know I talk too much. Okay, sorry, go Petty.
I was just gonna say, I feel like it's not that I agree or disagree with you in regards to the Black community, where it's typically a lot of households with single moms. I feel like what this means is that disproportionately Black women will see their sons and daughters, probably sons if we're talking about behavioral issue, taken away and put in the foster care system kind of disproportionately.
Which will not serve them better probably than what is going on in their own house.
I mean, it might not serve the child better. What about the mother?
Well, yeah, that's where it gets very complicated, because if there is a disproportionate number of single Black mothers who have to do the job of both parents, at that point, I feel like, I mean, because nowadays there isn't really a kind of a village mentality, and I would say like lean on family if you have it, or friends, but honestly, I think that's in an ideal situation, and many of these things aren't ideal.
So this is why it gets it's really sticky. It's a very precarious scenario, because
Yeah.
the in an ideal world, what we would do as a society is we would make sure the parents are equipped with the access, the knowledge, and the resources that they need to be the parents that the child needs. That's like in an ideal world, that's where you start, right? You kind of go from the top down. And when you don't have that, right, when that's completely removed, or when that's not even a possibility, then you're dealing with like the best of the worst, or the lesser of two evils, which again, foster care is not going to, they don't cultivate society's best human beings. Statistically, it doesn't work that way. But in the society that we have now, this is the world that we live in. The funding is not there. The access isn't there. For some people, the information and the knowledge and the bandwidth is not there. So we kind of have to do the best that we can with what we have. Where I feel like I think parents should always be liable. I think parents should always be responsible. I feel like I see a lot of people in the chat saying some kids are just bad. It's just not true. Kids are bad there's a reason. You can have a 6-year-old going to school, extremely belligerent, punching, hitting. You sit down with him or her, most likely him. You sit down with him and you talk to him and you ask him, hey, did you eat today? And it might be the case that he's very hungry. And then that leads into, okay, well, when's the last time that you ate? What did you have to eat? And then that kind of, there's that kind of like a cumulative effect where you figure out what's going on with this child at home and why that's contributing to his behavior at school. Kids don't just come to school and punch people. It doesn't happen. Behavior doesn't just happen. Behavior, it percolates, it builds over time. And even if you want to say, hey, some kids are born that way. Well, if they're born that way, then it's neurological and it's biological. Then clinically, you have to look at that child and if it's something that needs to be diagnosed, then medication needs to be incorporated. Like, it's so complicated. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
think
People are
you're.
just like, some kids are just bad. No, not really. Like, something happened.
Yeah, I think kids are a reflection of their environment and they're a reflection of their home life. At least, like growing up for me, I always remember my parents saying, like, I'm like a reflection of them. So when I leave the house, I must, like, carry myself a certain way, be, friendly, be nice, and all this stuff. And I still hold true with that, like, that saying even today. And I feel like that's helped a lot because I feel like many kids, if they're not taught like they're a reflection of their parents, they tend to like act out in this kind of selfish, like it's all about me mentality. And I think many kids nowadays have to remember or like just be taught like you're a reflection of your family and you're a reflection of your name. And like I feel like that also brings you a sense of pride as well. And when you have pride in yourself and pride in where you come from, you're not going to be acting out in many bad or like crazy ways. That's what I think.
I have a question based off of what Annalisa said. Before that, the super chats and then wake up, make up, slay. Darcy said, I was raised in foster care and adopted at 9, experienced more abuse in the system than in my own family. Speaking from experience, they will be in therapy for the rest of their lives. I'm 31 and still in therapy. Y'all can respond to that if y'all want to while I look for this one.
Like, I don't think that anyone on the panel, myself included, no one here is advocating. Like, I'm not the poster child for foster care. I'm not saying, hey, put your kids in foster care. They're gonna no. I'm saying we're in a world where we have to deal with the options and the resources that we have. And if you have parents that are negligent and you live in a system that doesn't advocate on behalf of parents, that doesn't have the funding to give the parents the resources, the access, the knowledge, the tools that they need to be better parents. Or in some cases, you have parents that do have those opportunities and they forego them and they choose not to tap into them because they really don't want to be parents. And I've seen it. There are parents who just do not want to be parents. And in those instances, in those kind of extreme circumstances, this is what we have. This is not, it's not, I don't think it's a social safety net, but that's what we have.
2L says, resources are available. Are parents utilizing them? Some folks don't want to be told how to raise their children. What happens in the home stays there. Stays there.
My because I keep on saying something about it. My issue with this whole like they should go to foster care idea is that it seems like in that situation that the punishment, I guess, of the parent by taking their kid is being looked at as the more important thing than the best interest of the child. Because even if your child is at school, now, of course, if you're abusing them or doing anything like that, putting them in harm, that's a harm's way, like physically or whatever, you're doing something like that, that's a different story. But if you have a child that's just like kind of chronically getting in trouble at school for different things and you don't know what to do and oh my goodness, like this just keeps happening, I think that taking the child from the parent is
That was never the scenario. Okay. I never said that. Nobody's.
I was just, okay. So I think that taking the child from the parent and putting them in foster care is more so focusing on the punishment of the parent versus the best interest of the child. Because most of the time, like in these scenarios where kids are acting up at school, even if their parents aren't doing the best job, it's still a better situation than them going to foster care.
Right. But again, that changes the framework has changed now for the conversation. It's changed, right? Because now we've gone from an extreme, which is a child shooting someone or, something extreme happening, to behavioral issues or to, getting into little things at school. Like now it's completely changed. So that's two different directions that you could potentially go in or that you should go in. So I'm not going to engage with that because I didn't say anything about that, but I'm not advocating on behalf of the foster care system. It is a broken system. It runs rampant with abuse, with neglect, and listen, I've worked in them. I know the numbers. It's terrible, right? Like they do the best that they can with what they have, but these children are already coming into the home. They're already coming into the home broken, and the staff they're not equipped to deal with what that child has experienced, because the funding is just, it's just not there. There's not enough hands on deck. There's not enough resources. There's not enough funding. At the end of the day, there's not enough people, like just not enough people willing to do what needs to be done. And that's the society that we live in. The society that we live in punishes children. Like that's just the world. And that's why children, when they're not taken care of properly, they unleash onto the world and society. And a lot of like really high profile serial killers, they will come out like after they're caught, and they'll be like, hey, like society treated me this way, and I'm punishing society because nobody cared about me. And I mean, that's an extreme, obviously, on the extreme end of the spectrum. But in a sort of in really and truly, that is what happens. That's what happens. Children, if you don't deal with them at home, if you don't take care of them, you don't love them, they are going to unleash and go down a path of destruction, and they take it out on society. That's the way that the world works.
Wake up, make up, slay. What say you? You can also comment on anything from the whole podcast. It doesn't just have to be about this conversation.
Okay. I've seen, we all are adults. We know that foster care is not great. I think this situation is a difficult one because the child was 6 years old, is 6 years old, right? So the parents are going to have to be held accountable because the child is 6. Considering the problems that this child would have, because it's hard for me to fathom a 6-year-old knowing how to shoot a gun. Like, what are the other details of that situation? That child had behavioral issues. What family member is going to take that child? Right? What other options would there be? This is a difficult situation, and I've seen what happens with people, picking up foster kids, friends, family, as a nurse, all of that. So you're dealing with some serious trauma. Would the household be the most ideal place? Yes, but what kind of parents are those? There's so many questions.
LB, your thoughts? The chat seemed to, the chat seemed on the fence, actually. But if anybody wanted to respond to Wake Up directly, though.
Well, I saw somebody in the chat say, does she even know a 6-year-old? And like, that was a bit intense, but I had a similar, I wasn't going to ask that question, but what I was going to say was just like, I've been around a large number of 6-year-olds because I used to work in education, and it's not beyond like fathomable, I can't even say the word, that like for me to I know it could be for you, because depending on like who you're around, like how people like pretty much like what type of kids you're around, because some kids like in rural areas or in urban areas are around like guns more, so they play with toy guns as a kid. Their parents have guns around, or people in their neighborhood have guns and let the kids play with them, which is horrible, but I've seen it. So I'm not surprised that a 6-year-old could shoot a gun. But I came up more so because I've worked with the foster care children. I did chronic absenteeism for like a major school district, and part of our job was to get resources to students, and most of my students that needed basic things were in the system. So like I have to get a kid clothes every week because they keep like taking his pants or something, or like I have to get him a new tablet mid-semester because he keeps getting robbed in the middle of the night. Like there's kids that like, they weren't so this is like trigger warning, by the way, but they weren't like sexually abused before, and now they're sexually abused and dealing with that. So then what happens a lot of the times, because I worked in the mental health department, so I worked with like counselors and the foster youth liaison, and then me as a case manager for absenteeism. We all work together, and I can say I've heard a lot of those professionals say, I have to consider what's best for the child. So I do agree with Kay, that's the mindset of most of the people that are mandated reporters. They're like, what's best for the child? So they weigh everything. And even if the parent's abusive, the parent may be an option. Like, if you know that where they're going to get sent, a large number of your kids are getting sexually assaulted or physically assaulted, bullied, robbed, or whatever, and then like you have a negligent parent, but this child will still be in better care staying at home. These are humans making these judgment calls, so all the rules and policies and procedures are there, but you still have to have somebody report it and somebody follow up. And then like resources, of course, like we know they're stretched. Like I've called CPS on a teacher that's known for grooming students, and because no individual student would come up, they wouldn't investigate it because it took too many resources and they had things that they could prove. So they tend to like go for things they could prove instead of investigating all things that are happening. As far as CPS,
we are. I did want to let y'all know we are at the 2-hour mark, so I did want to wrap up.
I just wanted, somebody said something in the chat about serial killers. Guys, listen. Most serial killers, yes, there are outliers, but most serial killers, they come from dysfunction. Trauma is at the root of it when it's not biological. Like psychopathy, for example, psychopathy is biological. It's not predicated on environment, but outside of that, it's trauma at home. Okay, that's the majority, not the minority, not the outliers. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, LB. Wake up.
Oh, sorry. I
Thank
know
you,
you're
LB, Rochelle, and Wake Up Makeup Slay. Kay, did you have any final thoughts? I'm gonna let Kay close out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Michelle, did you have something else you want to say?
If y'all gotta wrap up because I got places to be. I'm out here with my sugar mama, and y'all are holding me.
Okay, we'll stay here all night. Okay, Petty?
I'll make it very quick. I just wanted to quickly say that I kind of segue, because it's kind of related, but I've noticed this like very disturbing trend of like people, I don't know, solving problems or solving anything that's going wrong in their life with like guns recently. Like even with that latest shooting that happened with that guy who was fired from the bank. Like, it's very disturbing, and I don't know what's happening in America, but it's very disturbing trend, and the guns something needs to happen with the guns, because this is a very disturbing trend. We can't solve our problems with guns. Like, guns are not the answer to anything. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Rochelle. No, I was just thanking Rochelle.
Did you want to wrap?
I was gonna ask if I could say one last thing, but I know
you have 15 seconds. You can say one last thing.
No, you have 20. So you have 20 seconds. She has 20 seconds.
Thank you.
Okay, you decide.
I like you. Thank you.
In this time that y'all have been deciding, she could have said what she was trying to say. Go ahead.
I know.
Now you have 10 because we've already wasted.
No, absolutely not.
Go ahead, LB.
I'm gonna sell Themis on you. No. So pretty much all I wanted to say is one of the things that the new programs that my old district is bringing in this year is like bringing a mental health clinic onto campus with the help of a nonprofit that's partnering with them. And I think that instead of like pulling the parents from those or the kids from those situations, like when it's verbal abuse, even some degrees of physical abuse, I think that it's worth it to invest in the parents and get the parents educated. So we have like parent outreach groups for marginalized groups. They brought in therapy on site. And the main thing that holds us back is the parents and the kids aligning on whether they want to take those mental health services. So I think there needs to be more of a focus on shifting the culture, and especially Black and Hispanic communities, because like we don't play, honestly, a lot of Asian communities too. most people of color, they keep it in the home, so they don't really mess with it. The resources are there, but everybody has to agree. Like if a kid wants to go, the kid and the parent have to agree. If the kid wants the parent to go, you got a lot of work to do, because most of the parents don't want to admit, and a lot of the parents are afraid that if they admit that they don't know how to handle their child, or if they admit that they need help, that their child will be taken away and put in a worse situation. Like a lot of parents know, like I take out my anger on my kid and I spank them too hard or whatever, but they're like, if I go to someone for help on how to manage my anger, or like how to discipline my child better, they're going to know what I did. And then my kid could be put in this worse situation where they're getting abused in different ways that they don't want their child to experience.
It's and that's why we've been saying, like, it's such a difficult situation. Not conceptually. It's like it seems like all of us agree. We know it starts with parents, and we know how integral and how imperative their role and behavior is in the facilitation of all of this. But it's because it's such a vicious cycle. It's the parents, it's the shame, it's keeping it in the house, it's cultural norms and cultural expectations. Like there's so much happening, and it just, and again, because the Black community, which we were talking about earlier, because we don't kind of have a hegemonic, or we don't have a standard with respect to how what's best for ourselves and our children in the community. We don't know, we don't lean on anyone, we don't really know what we're doing, and we're decades behind when it comes to understanding abuse and trauma. It's so difficult. I wish we could continue talking about this, honestly, because I feel like we could come to some really like tangible and definitive or meaningful solutions, even if it's just in theory. But I think it was a good conversation. It's just a difficult one, and it's sad.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe we could bring it back up later. I know Petty got things to do. He got people to see and stuff. So thank you for letting me have my probably like 40 seconds. I appreciate it. I know you were counting.
That was really good, LB. Definitely, like, resources are a must, and I like what you described, that did you say school? You work at a school?
It's a I don't work for them anymore, but it's like a major district in LA. I can't say which one though.
I like that approach that you outlined that they were going to take. I think that there just needs to be more legislation around that, and like these things need to be requirements within schools to have these resources and whatnot, so that kids do have the support that they need, because right now many children do not, and parents, honestly, a lot of them just don't know what to do.
Legislation needs to change, because we have to apply for charters to be able to do that work every year.
Mm-hmm.
Every year we have to ask for approval to do things that are working. If they're not working fast enough, they cut the programs.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to get into like mandating reporting, or like the requirements and everything, and maybe it's different in Canada, I'm not sure, but sometimes because obviously there are some groups that are overrepresented, and that's because sometimes they're being overreported. So like there's a lot of issues, like a lot of issues at play. Somebody said at the end of the day, Anne, are you holding? Yes, I'm holding the parents accountable. Yes, even if we're gonna say, hey, some of these parents, they just don't know, they don't have the information. Okay, well, you're still responsible for acquiring the information, for taking the initiative. You're still responsible for learning. You're still you're liable. So the answer to that person who asked is yes, they are still responsible.
Thank you, Kay. I'm going to let you close us out. Thank you, LB, Wake Up, Makeup, Slay, and Rochelle. Kay, what say you?
I definitely think we should continue this conversation soon, maybe next show. I don't know, but we should continue it for sure. I really appreciated the callers sharing their perspectives. And also I've been looking at the chat. Like, I think it's a really good discussion. So yeah, we should continue it next week.
Okay. So if no one, I didn't notice this, but we're missing a certain person from the panel. Yeah, I'm not sure if anybody else has noticed, but it looks like we have a special guest in the background. I actually wasn't expecting this, so I'm going to play the outro, and then we can have like a quick 30-second.
You're sick, Petty.
Just like 30 seconds to let our special guest speak.
I know exactly what it is.
It looks like we have Mr. Andre 8. What say you?
Look at that hairline. That hairline it doesn't know if it's coming or going. I love it.
I feel like people. Where's Themis?
Put that picture back. That picture. That's a handsome little gremlin. Put that picture back up. Let me really like. Ooh. Look
Mr.
at
Sharpton,
Al.
how did you feel about the stream today, Mr. Sharpton?
Ooh,
He's so
he
fierce.
loved it.
His scare, he really embodies the conversation about, does this not give 6-year-old child taking a picture before heading to school? Anyway, yeah, no, Themis just disappeared on us today. That's so crazy. I was
no call, no show.
Listen, I think you put that picture up, like as everybody's heading out. I gotta no. Oh God, no. Go back to the.
Yeah, as we head out today, I just want to thank everybody for watching. Make sure you leave a like on your way out. There are 300 people in here, so I feel like there should be at least 300 likes. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like expecting too much, but it is definitely free and costs $0 to do. Oh, and subscribe if you're not already. With that being said, good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. I love you guys.
Now I can get to my hotel and do hotel things.